GRE strategy. The most important thing about the GRE is that it is predictable. If you study it, you will know exactly what to expect and when to expect it. It is predictable, calculated, and contains little to no surprises. As we mentioned in the introduction, often the biggest challenge to students when they take the GRE is getting used to taking standardized tests on a computer. Here's what your screen will look like. Let's break down the buttons you see at the top of your test screen. Unless you just cannot stand it any longer, never select Quit or Exit section. If you finish a section early, just relax while the time runs out. If you're not pleased with your performance on the test, you can always cancel it at the end. The Review button allows you to view your progress on all the questions you have looked at so far within the section you're working on. If you've marked any questions, they'll have a check mark next to them. The Mark button allows you to mark a question for later review. The Time button allows you to display or hide the time. During the last 5 minutes, the time display cannot be hidden, and it will also display the seconds remaining. The Help button will present a short tutorial showing how to use the program. You can select an answer choice by clicking the small oval next to it. Be aware that the clock will not stop when you click on Help. To go to the next question, click on the Next button. You will then be asked to confirm your answer by clicking the Confirm button. Then the next question will be presented. The Calculator button is self-explanatory. It brings the calculator up. This button will only be available on the Quantitative Reasoning section. The computer allows you to move around within the section you're working on. It's very hard to judge the difficulty level of questions while you're working on them, so just focus on doing the best you can with each question. Remember, every question is of equal value to your score, so don't make the mistake of wasting too much time trying to solve one difficult problem. If you can't get the answer or close to the answer within the first 2 minutes of attacking a problem, then simply guess and move on. Remember to use the Mark and Review buttons to mark questions that you would like to return to later. Sometimes it helps to come back to a question with a fresh set of eyes. Although time is limited on the GRE, working too quickly can damage your score. Many problems hinge on subtle points, and most require careful reading of the setup. Because undergraduate schools put such heavy reading loads on students, many will follow their academic conditioning and read the questions quickly, looking only at the gist of what the question is asking. To do well in your undergraduate classes, you have to attempt to solve every or nearly every problem on a test. Not so with the GRE. In fact, if you try to solve every problem on the test, you will probably damage your score. For the vast majority of people, the key to performing well on the GRE is not the number of questions they solve, but the percentage they solve correctly. The level of difficulty of the second verbal or math section you see will depend on how well you perform on the first verbal or math section. If you do well on the first verbal section, then the second section will be a little harder. And if you do poorly in the first math section, the second section will be a little easier. Within each section, you can change answers and skip questions and return to them, the Mark and Review feature. But once you leave a section, you cannot return to it. Remember, you should answer every question on the test, even if you're just guessing. You are not penalized for incorrect answers, so there's no harm in guessing. Make sure every question has been marked before you finish the section. If you can eliminate even one of the answer choices, guessing can be advantageous. We'll talk about this more later. Often, students become obsessed with a particular problem and waste time trying to solve it. To get a top score, learn to cut your losses and move on. If you're running out of time, randomly guess on the remaining questions. This will not harm your score. It can only help it. In fact, if you don't obsess about particular questions, you probably will have plenty of time to solve a sufficient number of questions. Because the total number of questions answered contributes to the calculation of your score, you should answer all the questions, even if this means guessing randomly before time runs out. Make sure you use the extra time at the end of each section to check your work. The review screen gives you an efficient way to double check that you have answered every question. Forgetting to answer a question can make a big difference in your score, so make sure you allot some time to double check your work. Another big difference from a paper-based test is the clock. Although you were timed on the ACT or SAT, there was not a clock at the corner of your screen that you could look at every second. This is a helpful tool, but it can also work to a disadvantage. Some students will get too hung up with the clock and lose focus on the actual problems. If you find yourself getting distracted, minimize the clock and get back to work. Finally, let's discuss the art of Zen. Be calm, be confident, and be focused. The GRE is one test. You can retake it, so don't sweat it. Forget everything else in the room. Forget the pressure. Simply focus on the test. You can do it, and you will do it. When you're at the school of your dreams, this will just be one Saturday when you happen to spend 4 hours of it sitting in a room taking a test. So let's get started.